They say the art world is about beauty, pure, transcendent beauty, that it's where emotion lives and truth breathes. But those who believe that have never worked a gallery opening with blood in their throat and glass in their smile. The truth is art is war. Some of us just use paint instead of knives. I met Marcus when I was 28, which was young enough to believe in magic and old enough to know better. He wandered into a dusty gallery I could barely afford to show my work in. One of those pop-up spaces by the river that smelled like mildew and last week's wine. He wore a black coat with sharp shoulders and moved like he owned the air. His gaze slid across the walls like he was callaging everything for an auction, and then he stopped. In front of my painting, it was a piece I called Bruised Fruit, an oil painting of a sliced apple, skin deep red, flesh nearly spoiled. It wasn't about apples, of course. It was about my father, my first love, and the way I felt every time I smiled too long at someone who didn't look back. Marcus stared for a long time before speaking. "It's not about the apple," he said. "It's about what someone did to it." I looked at him then, not knowing yet that those were the words that would ruin us both. We kissed an hour later in a back stairwell reeking of concrete dust and potential. He asked me if I wanted a drink. I said no. He said, "Good, I hate wasting time." I thought he was a hurricane. I didn't know he was a demolition. We moved in together 6 months later. My brushes went into the same drawer as his Collignon. Our lives overlapped like wet paint on canvas. Marcus was a gallerist, smart, refined, connected. He wore silver cufflinks and always knew which fork to use. I brought him grit and mess and passion. Together, we were magnetic. People said we were meteoric, blazing and unstoppable, but meteors only look beautiful because they're dying. At first, he helped me, curated my shows, offered suggestions. "You shine in deep palettes, Jules," he'd whisper, guiding my hand. "This piece needs clarity." I believed him. I let him shape me. Why wouldn't I? He made me feel seen. He made me feel like someone important. He made me feel like I mattered. But control wrapped itself around me slowly, like ivy around a statue. The questions became edits. The edits became rules. My voice, muted beneath his vision. I told myself it was love, that compromise was normal, that sharing a life meant yielding sometimes. But I never asked him to yield anything. That should have been the first sign. Then came Elliott Calder, a patron with perfect teeth and expensive silences. The kind of man who donated to museums but never cared what hung on the walls. He started attending every event, standing too close, complimenting Marcus just enough to insult everyone else. I noticed the glances. I noticed Marcus' new aftershave, the late returns, the laughter I wasn't a part of. I told myself not to spiral. That suspicion made me small. And then one evening, Marcus left his laptop open. He never did that. I didn't mean to snoop. I only meant to breathe. But the folder was right there, reference. Inside were messages that didn't pretend, plans to meet in Florence, photos, whispered mornings and careless joy, and one message that burned into my ribs. "Don't worry about Julian. He's buried in his work. Buried. As if I were a dead thing, a nuisance, something forgotten and fading in the background." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there and looked at the man I'd loved. And then I picked up my brush. The first painting was called Chiaroscuro, Lied to Light. A man kneeling in darkness, holding a golden mask shaped just like Marcus's face. Behind him, a faint sliver of window light. Hope trying to enter. Marcus saw it drying and smiled. "This one feels heavy," he said. "Like your old stuff." "I'm just getting started," I replied. He laughed and walked away. Over the next 6 months, I painted like a man possessed. I stopped sleeping, stopped going out. I declined shows and ignored emails. I was sculpting a grave out of canvas and oil. Each piece was a clue, each stroke a blade. Blue thread showed 2 men in a hotel room, one unbuttoning the other's shirt. A small monogram, EC, was embroidered on the cuff. The passenger featured a car's interior with a reflection in the window. A man wearing Marcus's signature silver watch, face turned inward. False warmth depicted a discarded coat on a hotel bed. His coat, with the family crest on the inside tag. Anyone could see the beauty. Only insiders would see the betrayal. And the final painting. That one I saved. That one was the kill shot. I told Marcus I wanted to debut the series in his gallery. I watched his eyes light up. "God, yes," he said. "You're back." This is your renaissance. I nodded and kissed him. It was the last time I ever kissed him. Opening night arrived like a storm. The gallery buzzed. Critics whispered. Wine spilled like gossip. Marcus stood at the center, proud and perfect, unaware that he was about to be hanged with his own charm. The first few paintings confused them. Then came the murmurs. That's Marcus' ring, isn't it? Wait, is that Elliott's dog in the background? By the time they reached resignation, a shattered wood bottle identical to the one Marcus always saved for Elliott. The crowd was humming like bees before a sting, and then we unveiled the final piece last night. A barren gallery, frames empty, a man slumped alone on the floor, face obscured, another man walking away wearing a red scarf. Mine. Silence swallowed the room. Marcus stood motionless. His face collapsed in on itself. Elliott slipped away. Reporters took notes. I stood beside my painting and watched Marcus unravel in real time. He left that night and never returned to the gallery again. Within days, the fallout began. Collectors withdrew. Artists removed their pieces. Sponsors disappeared like mist. Mosaic Gallery shuttered within 3 weeks. I sold every piece. One critic called it the most elegant public execution the art world has ever seen. But it wasn't about elegance. It was about silence. Months passed. Marcus disappeared from public view. No social media, no appearances, no attempts to contact me, until one day he showed up at my studio, unwelcome. He looked older, thinner, tired. I just wanted to say thank you, he said quietly. For what? I asked. For teaching me what it feels like to lose everything. I met his gaze evenly. You should have thought about that before you stole from me. His expression softened momentarily, perhaps seeing an opening. I made a mistake, he said. People make mistakes, I replied. You made a plan. He exhaled sharply, rubbing his face. What now? I stood, placing my hands on the desk. Now you live with it. He nodded, jaw tight, and then he left, without a word of fight, without a trace. 6 months later, I opened the doors to Julian Hayes' studio and consultancy. My space was modest, but it was mine. The logo on the door matched my name, my title, and my purpose. I hired an assistant, a PR manager, a financial advisor. We hosted workshops, partnered with nonprofit organizations, provided mentorship for emerging artists, and slowly, steadily, I became someone else. Not the man who rebuilt houses, not the one who fell for a contractor with a smirk and ink-stained wrists. I became someone who rebuilt himself, from the ground up. Amelia visited often, bringing coffee and stories from her job in Charleston. One day, she asked me point blank, "Do you ever regret it? The relationship, the years you gave him?" I thought about it. No, I said honestly, because those years taught me everything I needed to know about myself, about strength, about resilience, about what happens when you stop waiting for someone to appreciate you and start appreciating yourself. She smiled. You're terrifying, you know that. Good. I still live in the house. It's warm now. Quiet. The floors don't sag and the pipes don't hiss. It's perfect. But sometimes, when the wind rattles the windows, I swear I hear him. I don't know if he'll come back. I don't know if I'll ever stop building walls. But the house stands strong, and so do I. I had always believed marriage was about trust, loyalty, and partnership. For 10 years, I gave Daniel everything. My love, my support, my unwavering belief that we were in this together. I stood by him through business failures, personal setbacks, and the quiet disappointments life throws at you when you're too busy trying to keep everything afloat. I built our home, raised our daughter, held our family together while he chased his ever-changing dreams. And then, on the day I should have been celebrating my daughter's college graduation, he shattered it all with a single sentence saying, "I've decided to start a new life without you." The words hung in the air like an explosion, silencing the room. Our friends, our family, even strangers at nearby tables, all of them froze, their eyes darting between us, waiting for me to react. They expected tears, anger, a dramatic exit, something messy, something broken, but I didn't give them what they wanted. Instead, I smiled, not a fake smile, not a forced one, a real, honest-to-God smile, because in that moment, something inside me shifted. I wasn't surprised, not really. I had seen the signs. The late-night phone calls that ended abruptly when I walked into the room, the sudden need for privacy, as well the way he avoided answering simple questions about his schedule. I had spent months convincing myself that I was imagining things, that I was being paranoid, that I was just tired from work and needed to stop overthinking everything. But deep down, I knew. And now he had confirmed it. Gregory blinked at me, clearly thrown off by my reaction. "What?" he asked, his voice cracking slightly. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table as if we were having a perfectly normal conversation. "Congratulations on your honesty," I said, keeping my tone light. It must have taken a lot to finally admit it. His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Across the table, our daughter Amelia sat frozen, her graduation cap still perched on her head, her face pale with shock. My heart clenched at the sight of her. This was supposed to be her day, her moment of triumph. And now, instead of celebration, she was watching her father publicly announce his abandonment of the family he claimed to love. From the corner of my eye, I saw Cassandra Wells shift uncomfortably in her seat. She had been one of my closest friends once, back when we lived in the same neighborhood and shared coffee dates and parenting advice. Now, she looked like she wished the floor would swallow her whole. Good, with practiced calm. I reached into my handbag and pulled out a small, cream-colored envelope. I placed it gently beside Gregory's plate, watching as his eyes narrowed. "What's this?" he asked, his voice laced with suspicion. "A little something for you to read later," I replied, keeping my voice steady. Then, before he could say anything else, I turned to Amelia and kissed her cheek. "I am so proud of you, sweetheart. This day is still about your accomplishment." Then I stood, smoothed my dress, and addressed our stunned guests. "Please enjoy your meal. I wish you all a lovely afternoon." And just like that, I walked out. The house felt different now, lighter, somehow, like it had been holding its breath for weeks, waiting for something to shift. And now that it had, the walls no longer seemed to whisper with longing. They hummed with anticipation. As I stepped inside, the silence was suffocating. The house that Gregory and I had built together was now mine alone. Every nail, every beam, every joint, we had put them there. But now, only one of us remained, and I was ready to take full possession. I wandered through the rooms, fingertips grazing the walls, as if I could draw some kind of comfort from the solidness of them. But the sensation only reminded me of the effort it had taken to get here. The nights spent alone, poring over blueprints, calculating load distributions, reinforcing beams. I had built this house with my own hands. I had done it alone. So why did it feel like I had lost something in the process? There was a knock at the door. I opened it without hesitation. Diana stood there, arms crossed, a knowing look in her eyes. "I heard what happened," she said. "Are you okay?" I studied her for a long moment. "Yes." She arched an eyebrow. "That's not what Amelia told me." I shrugged. "She's still processing." She hesitated. Was it worth it? I tilted my head. At the time, yes, because Daniel had brought something into my life that I had never experienced before. He had challenged me, pushed me, made me laugh when I wanted to retreat, made me kiss him back when I should have run. And now, I had to move on. But I wasn't running anymore. I was rebuilding. The night I caught them was unremarkable. A rain tapped softly against the windows. Tank, our rescue dog, snoozed on the couch. I was flipping through a stack of final drawings for the museum project, finally feeling like I was getting somewhere. Then my phone buzzed. "Unknown number, your husband is at Lee Bernardin with another man." I stared at the message. At first, I thought it was spam, or some cruel joke, but something inside me twisted. I grabbed my coat. I drove downtown, heart pounding, stomach churning, and there they were, in a quiet corner booth, laughing, touching, sharing dessert like they hadn't just destroyed the foundation of my life. I watched from across the street, hidden behind the fogged-up window of my car, and then I walked away, not because I couldn't confront him, because I needed to be ready, and I wasn't yet. I waited. I gave him space to feel safe, to think he had gotten away with it, while he celebrated his escape, thinking he had blindsided me. I had already begun dismantling the life he thought he could walk away from so easily. I filed the emergency motion to freeze all joint assets. The prenuptial agreement we had signed 10 years ago was ironclad, and thanks to the fidelity clause, I had legal leverage he hadn't even considered. By the time he returned home, still reeling from his conversation with Mark, I had already begun building my case. He stormed into the living room, phone buzzing relentlessly. Bianca, what the hell is this? What have you done? I met his gaze evenly. I thought it aligned nicely with your plans. He clutched the envelope I had handed him earlier. Inside divorce papers, evidence of financial infidelity, and the prenuptial agreement that would leave him with far less than he had planned. Gregory collapsed onto the couch, muttering about the prenup expiring. It didn't, I said calmly. Section 12 specifically states that the fidelity clause remains in effect for the duration of the marriage. His face paled. That's not. You can't do this to me. I had every right, I replied. Just as you had every right to choose Cassandra. We all make choices. He tried to call his lawyer. I let him. Let him panic. Let him realize that he had no control anymore. Let him understand that I had always been 3 steps ahead. 3 weeks later, the press picked up the story. At first, it was subtle. Blog post titled, "Inside the Downfall of Literary Editor Mark Riven." Then came the follow-ups. Married to a man, cheating with another, exclusive photos inside. Cole Whitaker speaks out. Architect files for divorce after 5-year marriage implodes. Secret affair or systematic fraud. Sources say Whitaker was financially exploited. Each article dripped with calculated detail. Photos surfaced. Daniel in a hotel lobby, laughing with Mark. Text messages leaked. Conversations about how long it would take for me to notice. How much I was worth. How easy I was. Good. Let them see. Let the world know exactly who Daniel was. Let them understand that beneath the charm and wit was a man who stole trust like it was nothing. I ensured Daniel lost more than just his lover. I filed a civil suit for emotional manipulation and financial exploitation, allegations of fraud, unauthorized use of marital assets, misuse of shared investments. The court froze everything. His personal account, his publishing royalties, even the trust fund his parents had given him upon graduation. He tried to fight back. Of course he did. He hired a flashy Manhattan lawyer who spoke too fast and too loudly. But I had prepared for this. I had documents, time-stamped conversations, evidence of his pattern. This wasn't the first time he had done this. Another ex-lover came forward. Then another. Soon, Daniel was no longer the victim of a broken marriage. He was the predator who had preyed on people who trusted him. His publisher dropped him. His editor quit. His column vanished from Vortex. He was evicted from the sublet he had taken after moving out. And when he tried to contact me again, I sent him a single photograph, me standing in front of the house, sun behind me, everything stable, solid, caption, "Some things are built to last. Others just collapse." He texted me that night, "Please, Cole, this is too much." I replied with one word deserved. I arranged one last meeting, just us, no lawyers, no witnesses, only a quiet cafe near the park where we had once kissed like the world belonged to us. Daniel showed up wearing a hoodie and jeans. Nothing like the confident man who had walked into my life with a smirk and stolen my heart. He looked tired, broken. "I made a mistake," he whispered. "People make mistakes," I said. "You made a plan." He swallowed hard. "You broke into my life thinking I was weak." I continued, thinking I wouldn't see it coming, thinking I'd crumble. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "But I build things, Daniel, houses, structures, systems, and when something threatens the foundation, I reinforce it." He flinched. I handed him one final page, a screenshot of a new project I had launched, a nonprofit helping men and women rebuild after emotional and financial abuse. My name was attached. My story was featured. My message was clear. Love doesn't excuse theft. Trust doesn't excuse deception. And no matter how charming you are, you can't outrun consequences forever. He stared at it, jaw tight. "You're really not going to forgive me?" he murmured. "No," I said simply. "I'm not." He looked like he might say something else. Beg again. Try one last apology. But I turned before he could. Walked out of the cafe the same way I had walked out of our apartment that night, with my head held high and my heart whole. Months passed. Daniel disappeared from public view. No social media, no appearances, no attempts to contact me, until one day, he showed up at my office, uninvited, unwelcome. He looked older, thinner, tired. "I just wanted to say thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" I asked. "For teaching me what it feels like to lose everything." I met his gaze evenly. "You should have thought about that before you stole from me." His expression softened momentarily. Perhaps seeing an opening. I made a mistake, he said. People make mistakes, I replied. You made a plan. He exhaled sharply, rubbing his face. What now? I stood, placing my hands on the desk. Now, you live with it? He nodded, jaw tight. And then he left, without a word, without a fight, without a trace. 6 months later, I opened the doors to Cole Structural Consulting. My office was modest, but it was mine. The logo on the door matched my name, my title, and my purpose. I hired 2 associates, one focused on architectural restoration, the other on helping LGBTQ individuals navigate emotional and financial betrayal. We hosted workshops, partnered with nonprofit organizations, provided consultations that changed lives, and slowly, steadily, I became someone else. Not the man who rebuilt houses, not the one who fell for a contractor with a smirk and ink-stained wrists. I became someone who rebuilt himself, from the ground up. Amelia visited often, bringing coffee and stories from her job in Charleston. One day, she asked me point blank, "Do you ever regret it? The relationship, the years you gave him?" I thought about it. No, I said honestly, because those years taught me everything I needed to know about myself. About strength, about resilience, about what happens when you stop waiting for someone to appreciate you and start appreciating yourself. She smiled. "You're terrifying, you know that," I laughed. "Good, I still live in the house. It's warm now, quiet. The floors don't sag and the pipes don't hiss. It's perfect. But sometimes, when the wind rattles the windows, I swear I hear him. I don't know if he'll come back. I don't know if I'll ever stop building walls, but the house stands strong, and so do I.